Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well and today finds you and your loved ones safe and in good health. My name is Jenny Riley. I am the Associate Director of Marketing at Elevate Energy, and I will be facilitating the conversation around how to beat the heat with cool savings by learning about important savings programs and resources available to you to help lower your energy bills. Today's session is being recorded and you'll receive a link to the recording as well as links to any resources mentioned in a follow-up email. First, I'd like to start by thanking Yami Newell, Associate Director of Community Projects at Elevate Energy, for bringing us together with the Elevating Our Voices Town Hall series to talk about these very important topics. This is the last one of the series brought to you by Elevate Energy. Elevate Energy is a nonprofit dedicated to creating healthy, thriving communities by providing resources and programs for individuals and families to help reduce utility costs and keep housing more affordable. We are excited to be here with you today. I also want to thank our amazing panelists joining us today. Let me introduce them now. We have Sarah Moskowitz, Deputy Director at the Citizens Utility Board, also known as CUB. CUB is a Chicago-based nonprofit consumer advocacy group that represents the interests of residential and small business utility customers through outreach, education, litigation, and policy advocacy. Thank you, Sarah, for being with us today. We also have Caroline Pakenham, who is the Water Program Manager at Elevate Energy. In this role, she leads Elevate Energy's water safety, affordability, efficiency, and stormwater initiatives. Thank you, Caroline, for joining us here today as well. Marisa Joyce is a regional community liaison at Elevate Energy. In this role, Marisa serves as a team lead for community organizers and leads and provides oversight to community-based strategies for educating and engaging individuals on saving energy and money. Marisa, welcome. And finally, Pastor Booker Vance, Policy Outreach Manager at Elevate Energy. In his role, he works to further a policy agenda that delivers equity and justice for underserved communities and organizers with other nonprofits around environmental justice work. Thank you for joining us here today, Pastor Vance. And a final thanks to all of you for taking time out of your day to be here with us. The intent of this webinar is to be more conversation than presentation. Our speakers will be sharing their expertise, but we really also want to hear from all of you. Throughout our time together, any specific questions for our panelists, please put them in the Q&A. Any resources that you may know of or general comments, please feel free to share them in the chat box. Jeremy Bryant with Elevate Energy will be monitoring both throughout so that we don't miss anything. All right, let's get started and dive right in. The goal of our conversation today is to provide resources to energy efficiency and savings programs for families and individuals affected by the pandemic. Now, more than ever, we're spending more on our utilities due to higher than average costs. We're spending a lot more time at home and prevalent energy scams. Sarah will be discussing new consumer protections for utility customers in Illinois and what that means for you. Sarah, handing it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Jenny, and good afternoon, everybody. As Jenny said, I'm Sarah, and I work at the Citizens Utility Board, or CUB for short, and we are a consumer group that was formed back in the 1980s to represent and protect the interests of residential and small business utility customers across Illinois. We work on all levels of utility oversight, but the part that I really want all of you to remember is that if you are having an issue with your gas, electric, or phone company and can't get it resolved on your own, we do run a free hotline that you are welcome to call. We have live human beings picking up over there if you call during normal business hours, and our counselors are very friendly and can inform you of your rights, and in many cases, get in touch with someone higher up at the utility on your behalf. So in all of this, you're not alone. We have a lot of great panelists today, so I promise I'm going to be brief. Those of you who know me, I mean it. And I'm going to focus on just one piece of good news right now, which is something we can all use a little bit of these days. And that news is this. If you are having trouble paying your utility bills right now, The state of Illinois recently approved a sweeping package of protections and assistance for utility customers. The package includes a variety of items designed to help people, including easier reconnection of service. So if you were disconnected for non-payment over the past year, you can just call the utility and ask to get reconnected. If you self-certify that you have a financial hardship, you won't have to pay any reconnection fees. And as long as your meter wasn't tampered with and you're not seeking to be connected at a different address from where the service was originally disconnected, you shouldn't run into any problems. Another item is that utilities are waiving deposits for everybody until August 26th. And then after that, until December 26th, they'll waive deposits if you call and ask because of financial hardship. Also, the utilities are required right now to offer much more lenient payment plans, or if you like jargon, deferred payment arrangements, or DPAs. If you call and explain that you have a financial hardship, the utility will offer you a payment plan with no down payment and a payment period of up to 24 months. You're sensing a theme here, right? You have to call and explain that you are suffering a financial hardship, and then they are supposed to work with you. And then finally, the really juicy item is that this benefits package includes pretty significant debt forgiveness or financial assistance for people who call the utility and certify that they're experiencing financial hardship. The amount of that assistance will differ depending on which utility you're dealing with, but Chicagoland, the caps on the assistance is upwards of $400 or $500. Ameren territory, it's a little bit lower. And if folks have questions about the specific assistance amounts, they can look on CUB's website, or we can work it out in the chat. Funding for that is very limited. So if you want to take advantage of this assistance, you need to call your utility as soon as possible to apply. There was a moratorium on disconnections, but that's about up. When our state moved to phase 4 of reopening, the utilities were allowed to start sending disconnect notices again. And so disconnections can, in theory, start up again in just a few days, July 26th, I believe. But you have more options now than ever before when it comes to preventing getting disconnected. The main thing is got to be proactive and communicate with the utility company. And we at CUB, of course, want to know if you run into any issues with this whole process, because obviously this is new and the utilities have a lot of leeway when it comes to administering these benefits. So we at CUB are watching closely and counting on the people of Illinois to let us know what's happening out there. I think I'm about out of time, so I will just wrap up by saying I'm going to be here if you have questions about any of the specifics, and our website is citizensutilityboard.org. If you want to read about these consumer protections or just about any other utility related matter, we're here for you. So thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you so much for all that information. And as Sarah mentioned, CUB has a free hotline. So any questions, any issues that you have, go ahead and get that phone number and give them a call, and they will find the information that you need. All right, I'd like to take this time to now hear from Marisa and have her share her expertise and her knowledge around residential savings programs and resources available to utility customers. Marisa?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for that introduction, Jenny, and thank you all for taking some time to spend with us today and learn how to save on these electricity bills. So let's talk about some simple ways that we can all save on our electricity bills this summer while we're sheltering at home, while also keeping our homes comfortable. So thanks to the new smart meter or digital meter that Ameren and ComEd customers now have on our homes, we have access to information about our electricity use that we've never had before. With this information, this access, we are now allowed the opportunity to better control and manage our electricity use, which will help us manage our bills through new pricing programs that are offered by ComEd and Ameren that are based on the hourly or real-time cost of electricity, not the historic fixed rate that we are used to paying. So there's many benefits to these programs: consumer, environmental, and community benefits. What appeals to most people is learning that on average, participants in these programs have saved 15% off the cost of their electricity supply while in these programs compared to Ameren and ComEd standard rates. So that's a nice savings. So if we go to the next slide, we can see the current prices for Ameren and ComEd customers if they are not on an hourly pricing program. So by default, you are on a fixed rate program. That means regardless of the time of day, if you look at this diagram here, you're paying right across that blue line. No matter what the price of electricity is doing, which are the squiggly lines you see there, you're stuck paying that fixed rate. You can see those squiggly lines are oftentimes below that fixed rate. That's the varying price of electricity. That's the actual price of electricity that if you are on an hourly program, you too can take advantage of paying. The yellow line there that does spike above the blue line, that is a peak that happens generally every summer afternoon when we all crank our air conditioners and the price of electricity goes up. So if you are on an hourly pricing program, those are the times of the day that you're going to want to use less electricity. If we go to the next slide, we'll take a look at how the actual prices look for both ComEd and Ameren customers on these programs. And I apologize, it's a very long table that they have there. So on top, this is Ameren's Power Smart pricing program. These were prices from a few days ago. Ameren's fixed rate is at about 4.4 cents per kilowatt hour, which that red line there on that top graph is at about 4.5 cents. I've placed it there. So you can see that on this particular day, there were only a couple of hours where customers on Ameren's Power Smart pricing program were paying a little bit more, not even a penny more for the electricity they were using. The rest of the day, as you can see, they were saving, they were paying significantly less off those for that electricity supply cost on their bill. Finding that supply cost on your bill and making sure that you are an Ameren or ComEd customer is something that Cub is happy to help with. I know I'm happy to help with. We want you to be a good fit for this program. We want you to know about it and take advantage of it if it works for you. You can see here on ComEd's prices as well that they never hit that fixed ComEd rate on this day. Now, it doesn't always work like this. And again, we want to make sure you're a good fit. But if we can go to the next slide, in a nutshell, the more you can shift your electricity use to lower price times of the day, the more opportunity you have to save. Here's some information about the programs. Elevate is the program administrator. So again, we want you to be a good fit. We want to help you save as much as you can on that electricity bill. Even if you're not an Ameren or ComEd customer, the next slide will show that we are all spending about 6% or about 6% of our electricity bill is used for our air conditioning costs alone. Really expensive. One of the most basic things you can do is to make sure that your air conditioning filter is always clean. Just replacing that filter can save you 5 to 15% off your air conditioner's energy consumption. You want to make sure that your coils are clean on your air conditioner. And some other general tips, aside from air conditioner, the unit itself, are things you can do to help your home feel cooler. So if you have a ceiling fan, making sure that that runs counterclockwise in the summer so that the cold air is being pushed down, decreases the humidity in the room, which makes your room feel cooler. So if we think about Louisiana heat versus Arizona heat, we know that humidity is key for how comfortable we are. So a lot of the energy efficiency tips for summer center around humidity, things like running a dehumidifier, running your bathroom fan after a shower or a bath, and then just some general things like trying to stay away from using your oven during the day, try microwaving or stovetop cooking instead, reducing the amount of light, of heat that's coming from your light bulbs. So LEDs, if you've heard of LEDs, they use 80% less energy than your standard bulb and last a heck of a lot longer than a standard bulb. If you replace just those one or two bulbs that you know you use the most, you'll see a little savings on your bill. Also, you'll keep your home cooler. So a standard bulb emits, that's about 140 degrees. An LED heats up to about 90. So if you think of someone who has a lot of can lights in their kitchen, they have these on, they have their oven running, they're really working against that air conditioning bill. So just being smart about those things will go a long way towards helping your electricity use, even if you're not able to take advantage of Power Smart pricing or ComEd's hourly pricing. Again, if you'd like more information, you're welcome to call the phone lines. I know, and I'm friends with the people who are in the call center. We're happy to help you. Feel free to reach out to myself as well. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Marisa. So we heard from Sarah how to access information and where to go if you're having any challenges with your bills or have any questions around your bills or utility programs. Marisa continued the conversation with information and benefits around hourly pricing programs available in Ameren territory and also ComEd territory, and some great tips on how to reduce energy consumption. Let's talk now about another bill that is on the rise and we're seeing costs are rising, and that's our water bill. Caroline will join us now and share information about rising water costs and resources available to assist you with lowering your bill. Caroline, welcome.
Great, thanks so much. And I'm really glad we're including water in today's conversation. In our water program work here at Elevate Energy, what we do is we really focus on ensuring that all residents have access to clean, safe, and affordable drinking water. And today we're really going to dig into that affordable drinking water piece, and we're going to talk a little bit about the water affordability challenges our region is facing. And then I do want to take some time to introduce you to a program here in Chicago that can really help residents better control their water bills. So we'll be sure to talk about that today. To start, I'd like to provide some background on the water affordability challenges we're seeing across the country and right here in Northeastern Illinois. Water bills, they're becoming more and more expensive every year. And this is really placing a big financial strain on many households, and as many as 15 million Americans every year experience a water shutoff. And since 2010, what we're seeing is that water rates have increased by over 57% in 30 major US cities. And then right here in Northeastern Illinois, what you're seeing on this slide is our water rates have grown from about $4 per 1,000 gallons back in 2008. And then you fast forward to 2018, that cost has grown to over $7 per 1,000 gallons. So you might be wondering why are we seeing increasing water rates here in Illinois and across the country? And a big part of this is because our water infrastructure is really old and it's in need of repair and replacement. You think about Chicago, our water infrastructure was built about 80 to 100 years ago, and you're seeing that in a lot of Midwestern and Northeastern cities. It's old, it's in need of repair. There's also been a sharp decline from like the late 1960s and 70s to today in the amount of federal grants and subsidies that are going toward water infrastructure. So the cost really is on ratepayers right now to help make a lot of those upgrades. And then as you have population changes in a city, that can also impact the cost of water. And then of course, there's increased energy, chemical, and labor costs that can all play a role. So that's just a little bit of context for you as to why we're seeing those increasing water costs. But with these increases, what we're also seeing is that the ability of residents in our communities to pay for water service is on the decline. We're having a lot of wage stagnation and then increases in our cost of living. So this is creating a really challenging situation for a lot of households. Elevate Energy, the Metropolitan Planning Council, and the Illinois-Indiana Sea Grant, we actually conducted a study that was just released this year on water affordability challenges in Northeastern Illinois. And what we found is that 75% of communities in Northeastern Illinois, they're experiencing increases in water bills that are exceeding income growth rates. And this has been happening over the past 10 years. We also found that 72 municipalities, the lowest income earners, they have to work more than 8 hours each month just to afford their water bills. So that's just some important context for all of us to be thinking about. So the next question I'm sure a lot of you are wondering about is, what can we do to really begin to tackle water affordability challenges in our region? And I think it's important to first recognize that water affordability, it's a complex problem. So it's going to require multifaceted solutions. And because every community is unique, a one-size-fits-all approach, it may not work everywhere. But there are some things like affordable rate design, water efficiency and conservation programs, programs to address customer water debt, and then improvements to customer assistance programs. Those are all some things that can help us begin to tackle water affordability challenges. And if we flip to the next slide, I do want to introduce you to some really good news that we have for some customers right here in Chicago. The city of Chicago recently kind of went from pilot phase to full-scale program phase for the utility billing relief program. And what this program does is for eligible residents, it's a 50% rate reduction on their water and sewer bill. And then what's also really cool is it offers water debt forgiveness if you have successful completion in the program for a year. And to qualify for the program, there are some certain income qualifications, and then you do need to be an owner of a single family or 2-flat home. But I do really encourage you all to go onto the city's website and learn more about the program, see if you're qualified, share information with your networks. You can learn more at chicago.gov/UBR. And the phone number you can call too is 312-744-4426. And just to kind of wrap up this conversation on water affordability, I'd really like you to kind of keep 3 things in mind. And the first is just a recognition that water costs are on the rise in our region, and it's becoming increasingly difficult for a lot of our neighbors to pay their water bills. The second, water affordability, it's a complex problem. It's going to require multifaceted solutions, and we want to hear your input. It's really important to get community input on these challenges. And then finally, I really encourage you to do everything you can to spread the word about this utility billing relief program. So with that, I'll pass it back to Jenny.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for all that information. So valuable to so many residents and to communities to build stronger. Let's keep the conversation going further. Pastor Vance, if you could join us and share information regarding the water shutoffs, the water distribution, and the importance of community partnership in all of this to build stronger communities. Pastor Vance?
Yes, I'm just glad to be on here today, and I thank you. And I'm just, first of all, just excited about all the information that you've just garnered. Please know that you can review this video afterwards and get back over the information because you got a lot going on here. And I'm thankful to talk about water distribution. As Caroline just shared some of the challenges that are going on in the city of Chicago and the surrounding areas with water, water cost, and water distribution. Elevate Energy joined in partnership with other organizations around this city to make sure that we distributed water, cases of water, to areas and communities that are underserved and find themselves in kind of challenging situations. And so we distributed water. One of the things that I was blessed about being throughout, working in the South Side and throughout the city for over 30, 40 years, is that there are a variety of areas, and we wanted to make sure when our distribution that we got it all over the city so that communities could experience this. We distributed on the west side and the south side for Pilsen, to Humboldt Park, to Inglewood, to Woodlawn, Roseland, and the south suburbs, to the Allgale Gardens and Hegwish, Woodlawn, again, and the coordinated distributions. And all of these were the food pantries as well as food weekly distributions. And we tried to coordinate it so we could use our water alongside with what people were doing in communities to address the needs of food. And that we found that very helpful. We also went to some transitional centers what they call team living program, where we had particularly communities and folk who were in transitional living. We also did the NAACP on the west side, as well as Windsor Park, and a group called Kids Off the Block, which in Roseland. And Blacks in Green was another one of our groups, as well as El Vejo. So what I try to do was make sure we got all over the city. And the fact we've gotten to the point we've almost run out of water for now, but we're on the hunt to get water, more water, so we can do more distributions. As you know, if you weren't here, and a lot of my colleagues haven't been here as long as I've been here on the earth, 25 years ago was the anniversary of the unfortunate challenge that we had with the deaths that came around the heat wave here in Chicago. And we've just marked again that 25th anniversary. And as you know, last week was a sweltering example of what had gone on. And what we found in relationship to this was that we really do emphasize cooling centers, and the city of Chicago has a heat plan that they want everyone to know about. And we want to encourage you, because you have to stay hydrated. You have to stay connected to folk, and we have to look out for one another. And so please take note of that with that information, and check the city of Chicago's website in all that you can find about water and cooling centers and so forth. But the other pieces that we have to just understand, that we just have to help and watch out for each other. In the COVID times, particularly, we have to continue to wash our hands, to wear a mask, and the social distancing, because that's very important in relationship to not only we keep hydrated, but we keep safe. And that's a particular piece that we recognize in relation to this discussion. I'm just so thankful in the work that we're doing. Again, please, we ask you for any information you can give in helping us to replenish our water. And also, we also make home deliveries. So if there are particular folk who are not in the areas that I've lifted up already, or able to get access, that we can deliver. And so we please ask you to call in. We'll get your name and address, and we'll make sure you get a case or two, and we'll try to make those deliveries. And that was something personal that we did throughout this challenging time. So glad to see you, glad to be with you, and we'll continue to do the work that we're doing, and continue to pray for our work and our ministry.
Thank you so much, Pastor Vance, and thank you so much for all your hard work with the water distribution these past few months, and to Elevate Energy as well in getting water out to the communities that need them. Speakers, if you can all join me now, I'd like to bring you all into the conversation to answer some questions from the audience, and kind of further this conversation that we're talking about consumer protections, utility bills, savings programs, and resources, and what we can do together as a community to build stronger and to help each other out. As Pastor Vance mentioned, this summer marks 25 years since Chicago's heat wave, a week of record high temperatures that resulted in over 700 deaths, predominantly of people who were low-income seniors and people of color residing on Chicago's south and west sides. Today, we're in the midst of another hot summer, as Pastor Vance mentioned, and with COVID, it's exposing the same economic and racial inequities that happened in the heat wave 25 years ago. So Pastor Vance, if you don't mind, I'd like to bring you back in here, maybe one or two things that you can name to bring communities together, work in the access resources that come to mind to you.
Sure. So one of the things that's mindful of a community and the breadth and depth of a community is how it takes care of its seniors and how it looks out for its seniors. So it's very important for you to pay attention and look out for your seniors and make sure they have water. And also, lots of times people think that they close themselves up, that it's cooler, but you have to make sure that there's air ventilation as well as hydration. And folks don't understand that you can get dehydrated in a minute. I don't care how young or old you are, you have to keep yourself hydrated. And so we want to make sure that that's the reality also. But again, neighbors have to look out for each other. One of the things that I'm reminded of, some of the challenges that we find in Chicago, is that people really do care for each other. And we just have to begin to become models and examples of that in the work that's going on, particularly in this heat and in this issue of cooling centers and so forth, and particularly in the COVID viruses. Illinois people, we're all right because our numbers are down, because we've done what we needed to do and we're looking out for each other.
Great, thank you, Pastor Vance. For our other panelists, Sarah, Marisa, and Caroline, can you share your perspective in light of COVID and all the new challenges this has presented for us as individuals, our families, everybody's now at home, and as consumers, our bills? How do we move forward, rebuild better during this time? And what does that look like to you? Sarah, I'll start with you.
Sure, thanks. When I was talking earlier, I probably didn't emphasize what a big deal this settlement between state officials, community activists, low-income advocates, consumer advocates, and utilities that gave rise to all those special consumer protections that I mentioned. What a big deal that is. This was an unprecedented process with all of these players at the same table actually agreeing to some pretty hefty benefits for customers. It is pretty, I didn't think it was going to happen. And other parts of the country are looking to what we've done here in Illinois as a model for what can happen in other states. But it's not over by any means. These protections only last basically through the rest of the year. So we have an unusual opportunity right now while people are focused on these issues to get something longer lasting passed in Springfield, perhaps, that can bring real rate relief to consumers who need it. Traditionally, you got the energy rates and there's a low income assistance program that a very, very tiny little subset of people qualifies for, and that's it. CUB and Elevate are members of a lot of coalitions working on some long-lasting solutions for utility affordability that incorporates energy efficiency and demand response and all these great things. And I do feel some hope on where we can go from here. It seems like those in power are paying more attention to these issues than maybe they have in the past.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Marisa, can you give us your thoughts about how to rebuild better during this time, and what does this look like to you?
Sure. So I'm a member of our outreach team at Elevate. So 100% of what we do is immersing ourselves in a community, learning what that community needs, meeting them where they're at, not shoving them into programs we have to offer, but finding solutions that help their specific communities, their specific needs. It's very difficult to physically be anywhere now, let alone introducing yourself to a new community and trying to build trust as a messenger with basic information and knowledge that you just want to share with people. So that's a challenge as we're looking how to gain access to the hardest to reach people who need our help the most. And those are the people you really have to be on the ground. You have to be in that community. And so we're finding ways to access them virtually. I've started some discussions with schools to try to reach parents that way, especially with senior citizens. We're rethinking that outreach model as well. A large part of what we do in our outreach team is actually going into people's homes with an infrared camera. As a friend at that point, they invite people over. We walk through their home. We show them issues they may be having, easy ways that they can fix those issues. We leave them with a free Nest learning thermostat to help them save immediately on their electricity bill. It's sort of a one-stop shop for how to save money on your electricity bill. And not being able to do that right now means that the 3.4 million people we've already been able to reach, kind of stopped. So we're finding new ways to gain access. And I think for us moving forward, we need to look at atypical partners. So we work very closely with CUB and Faith in Place and other organizations, but I think looking outside our circles at partners that we haven't considered or perhaps don't necessarily align with in other policy realms. A lot of rethinking.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for that, Marisa. Caroline, I'm going to hand it over to you. And from your perspective, can you share with us what are your thoughts around rebuilding better and what that looks like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that comes to mind just with COVID and what we're dealing with our water systems is water shutoffs. We 100% have to figure out a way to tackle that. It's unacceptable that our neighbors don't have access to water right now, not just during COVID, but before COVID. And then when you throw a pandemic on top of it, it's just even more stressful. So a lot of communities, in Illinois and across the country are struggling to identify who has their water shut off. And then you need approaches and policies to very quickly be able to restore people's waters. So I think as we look to rebuild stronger, definitely that is one thing that 100% needs to be addressed. And then also looking at, legislation that we may be able to have in the state of Illinois to tackle water affordability comprehensively. So looking at rates and programs and not just, maybe assistance, but more comprehensive packages to holistically address water affordability. And then rebuilding stronger. The other thing I would say is we have this old infrastructure that needs to be replaced. And I think it's a really important opportunity to create a lot of jobs and get young people and a diverse workforce in the water field. So that's something else I really would encourage us to think about as we look to rebuild stronger.
Great, thank you, Caroline. Pastor Vance, handing it back over to you. What are the impacts you've seen around racism and environmental injustice that have within the populations and communities you serve? And when you talk about that, in the frame also of how that impacts everything from the communities building stronger, our utility bills, the costs getting higher, and what are the impacts that you're seeing around all of this?
So one of the things that's been very eye-opening for me in particular, as we talked about the anniversary of the heat wave here in Chicago, there was a film put out, a documentary called Cooked by Zip Code. And what it basically said that they recognized by the zip code 60619 in particular, that they had been, most of those 700 people died. And it was in the zip code they lived. So we recognize that some of the challenges all have to do with geographic. It has to do with people of color. It has to do with neighborhoods. It has to do with resources. And even as we found out with the COVID discussion about health disparities, adversely impacting people of color and communities of color. So we begin to see, Jenny, that this is more than just an accident, that there are things that we have to do because it's systemic, and systemic racism is far more complicated in the sense that we have to really address it. Personal racism has its own particular challenge, but the issue of a system that's been kind of hooked up and rigged to be able to adversely protect people, adversely impact people is important for us to recognize. And so we're trying to do, Elevate does a good job about educating people. It also does a good job about advocating for folk and educating folk. Like today's webinar, it was really important. We got a lot of education and we're teaching people a lot of things, how to take care of themselves and protect themselves. But we still have to get at some of the harder discussions that are going on, particularly around race and inequity and some of the challenges that we're facing in our neighborhoods and communities.
Great, thank you so much, Pastor Vance. And yes, I completely agree. Elevate Energy does a great job around education and providing resources. Sarah, I'd like to bring you on to talk about the type of work that CUB does, especially I know that there's a new HEAT Act law that went into place. Can you provide some information regarding about it and the benefits that it provides, and also talk a little bit about the work that CUB does?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about alternative energy suppliers. This has been my life for years. We were thrilled last summer when the Illinois General Assembly finally passed what was called the HEAT Act. And don't ask me what that stands for. I don't remember anymore. But it was a legislation that basically finally goes some way, at least, to bringing these alternative energy suppliers, the ones that go door to door, call you up, send stuff in the mail, does some work to bring them under control and prevent them from gouging people. Some of the things it did, it went into effect on January 1st of 2020. So it's in effect now. It got rid of early termination fees. It also prevents these companies from automatically renewing your contract to a variable rate that's going to be higher than the rate that you signed up for. That was a big problem. It also gives the Illinois Commerce Commission sharper teeth when it comes to punishing companies that commit wrongdoing. So we haven't seen all of the alternative energy supplier issues vanish by any means, but it does seem to have had something of a positive effect in that it's not quite as egregious. But even still, we see a lot of these overpriced companies on people's bills, and we spend a lot of time helping people get off the plans if they were signed up fraudulently or lied to. We'll do our best to try to get a refund for folks. So, we take that action when people call our hotline. Like Elevate, a lot of what CUB does is on the ground grassroots outreach and education, which has basically come to something of a standstill. But also like Elevate, we've learned how to pivot to virtual events like this. We also, a CUB signature event is what we call a utility bill clinic. And that's the event where we bring a bunch of our staff and we invite members of the public to bring their bills, and they can sit down with us and we'll consult with them one-on-one over what we see on their bills and what kinds of programs that might benefit them. So that's when we can identify that part of why the bill is high might be because you're with an overpriced supplier. Maybe you would be a good candidate for hourly pricing or power smart pricing. And the conversations can be really in depth. And in better times, we do these events in person, but now we're doing them virtually so people can mail copies of their bills to us. We have one person going to the office once a week, checking our mail. You can always email them to us. And we're also actually setting up virtual utility bill clinics where people can schedule a time to actually do a Zoom conference with us. And we'll look over their bills with them. Not quite as good as in person, I think, because I'm kind of old school when it comes to that stuff, but it's the next best thing.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you so much for bringing up the utility bill. Those dreaded bills, they're so hard to understand. They have so much information. You see what your utility costs are every month and you're like, what's out there? What is out there to help me? So to everybody who is here joining us today, CUB is a great resource to help you understand that utility bill and provide you with more information on programs. And yes, definitely be aware of those alternative suppliers. Thank you for all of that information, Sarah. Marisa, can you tell us a little bit about the resources or places consumers can get assistance to learn how to read their bills separately from CUB, if you can share that as well?
There's no other. No, I'm just kidding. I'm happy at Elevate. Our community outreach representatives also routinely look over bills for people. We're happy to take a look at that as well. You can also go to Ameren and ComEd's website. They have sample bills available. The key things that I look at someone's bill is you want to check your supplier, because as Sarah just mentioned, I've lost count of how many people I run into who are convinced that they're with Ameren, and I look at their bill and they're not, and they're shocked and they don't remember signing up with this company, or they have their mom's bill and someone stuck their foot in the front door and wouldn't leave their mother's home until she signed up. I mean, it's really terrible. And there's a great website I'll plug. It's called Plug-in Illinois. It is all one word, pluginillinois.org. The Illinois Commerce Commission runs this website. So it's a state government website. You can compare your current fixed rate with ComEd or Ameren with the hundreds of offers that are out there from these alternative suppliers. So I would encourage everyone, check out your utility supplier and check out that Plug-in Illinois to steer clear of those alternative suppliers. And again, I'm happy to look at anyone's electricity bill. You can control two things on that bill: how much you're using and what you're paying. And other than that, those taxes and fees and transmission fees, just leave that for another day.
Great, thank you so much, Marisa. So I'm going to turn it over now with more questions that are coming in from our audience, and to our panelists, whoever wants to answer, and then please just unmute yourself. So I'll start with the first one. We have a few, and I'm going to try to get to them with the amount of time that we have. But who is the best to reach out to in trying to determine if the new UBR program is best for a customer? Caroline, I think that might be for you.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I would certainly encourage folks to reach out to the customer service and utility program at the City of Chicago to discuss that with them. I think you also have to take into consideration the UBR program does address past water debt. So I think that's something that you need to look at in your own specific situation, because if you do have that successful participation in the program for a year, it can wipe out your water debt. So I would start by calling the City of Chicago and having a discussion with them. I'm sure CUB could also provide some really great assistance. And then always feel free to call Elevate Energy as well. We're happy to discuss this with you.
Great, thank you. And then I think another one is, could CUB or sub-agency help go over the numbers to make sure it is best for a customer? Yes, and Sarah, if you could just quickly give us that hotline number, and then we'll be posting more information as well in the chat and in a follow-up email.
Sure, yeah, CUB's hotline number is 1-800-669-5556. Or if you just Google Citizens Utility Board, our website is citizensutilityboard.org. And you can also submit complaints and inquiries through our website as well.
Great, thank you, Sarah. I have also another question, Caroline, on the UBR program, and it's got a lot of information. I think what they're asking for is it would be helpful to have someone to go over the specific points to see if the UBR makes sense, or just keep all the current senior citizen benefits as is. So Caroline, I'll let you respond to that.
Yeah, I think my response would probably be similar to the one I just had, in that I would really encourage them to call the city, because I do think it's very individual specific based on your situation. But the other thing I would say is that the City of Chicago, they do have on their FAQ page, they actually recorded a webinar where you can kind of listen to all the details of the program as well. So that might be a really helpful resource for folks. So if you go to the FAQ page, you can watch like a 30-minute webinar on the program. So that's another really good resource for folks.
Great, thank you. Sarah, question for you. Do the new consumer protections extend to people who may be undocumented?
Yes, yes, they do.
Great, thank you. Here is another question for one, and whoever thinks they can answer, please go ahead. I live in Rockville, Illinois. Are there water resources in central Illinois that can assist with saving money?
So their water scene is really different from energy utilities in that there's hundreds of water utilities in the state of Illinois. So I would really encourage you to call your local water utility to ask them what type of assistance they do offer you. Ask, do you have budget billing? Do you have flexible payment plans? Can you tell me about your fee structure if I missed something? Can we, I know I'm going to be late on my water bill this month. Can you work with me? Do you have assistance programs? So I'm not sure specifically for that community, but I would really encourage people to reach out to their water utility to ask them what they have and to get those policies. And then also one thing I didn't talk about today, but also is water quality testing. If you have a concern about your drinking water, maybe you're concerned about lead in your drinking water, another parameter, definitely call your water utility to see if they have any resources to help you.
And the other piece that's important, Marisa is downstate and Gabriel is in the central Illinois. So we've got folk in Elevate all over the state. And if you call an outreach director or outreach person, they'll work with you to help you figure that out so that you're not out here by yourself. But we've got people we're making a concerted effort to make sure we have representation who can assist you and help you throughout the state. So please take advantage of it.
Definitely. Thank you for that, Pastor Vance. And we'll be providing that information to who you can contact. Here's another question. We have a few coming in. Who can we contact to complain about the escalating water rates in the rest of the state? And especially, I think this person is from Carbondale. Where can we complain about these escalating costs?
I would encourage folks to reach out to city officials and to their water utility. Definitely make your voices heard. They do listen to the public, and be sure to let them know how you feel and how it's impacting your household. I think that's a really great place to start. And then also, I know the Illinois Environmental Council is working with a lot of environmental groups in the state to really tackle challenges to water affordability at the state level. So simply sharing some of your concerns and what you're experiencing with IEC, I think is really helpful as we're looking to shape legislation and policies to really help people who are struggling to pay their water bills. And email me, reach out to me. I'd love to learn more about, what you're experiencing and how you think changes should be made, so that as we're having discussions on the type of legislation that we want, we can incorporate community voices.
Great, thank you. Marisa, a question for you is, where do I find a smart thermostat that works, low cost, and possibly free?
Right. So both Ameren and ComEd offer rebates on smart thermostats. Ameren also, depending on your zip code, is offering completely free thermostats right now. That is their Ameren Smart Savers program that you can Google. It is not income-based, that is zip code based. Their rebates for a smart thermostat is $75 for ComEd and $100 for Ameren. The smart thermostats that we leave with homeowners or renters after doing what is now a virtual get-together or house party, those retail for $178. But with Ameren's $100 rebate, that thermostat will pay for itself in several months. Because with a smart thermostat, the Nest E that we distribute, it's a 10 to 12 savings off a heating bill and up to 15% savings off an air conditioning bill if they're using the thermostat purposefully to save money. They can also get a free smart thermostat, the Nest E, if they choose to have a virtual house party or get together through Elevate Energy, through one of our community outreach reps. It's all virtual. We have some footage with an infrared camera that we've taken in our own homes, so we can still show you easy things you can do, like air sealing your home, caulking around your windows. If you have a window air conditioning unit, making sure that that's sealed around there. That air sealing and insulating your home can reduce your energy loss by 67%. It is the #1 most cost-effective way to save money and make your home more comfortable. So having a virtual house party where you're going to learn exactly what to do to air seal your home and insulate your home. And then we also gift you with that thermostat. Again, we want you to save money. We want you to be comfortable. We want to help curb the climate crisis. And we want Black and brown communities to stop being disproportionately affected by that. We're still doing that work. We're just doing it differently. So please reach out to us if you want that thermostat. More importantly, if you want the information, let's be clear.
Great, thank you, Marisa. I know we're getting close to time, but I do have one more question. And for the questions that we don't get to, we will respond to the questions and provide the resources to all of those questions. So please know any unanswered questions, we will get to them, even if we don't get to them live here. Marisa, here's a question. If I fail to manage my power use, would I still receive a net benefit from Power Smart pricing?
In general, yes. Because if you're not doing anything to curb your electricity use, guess what? You're still using electricity. You're just using the same amount that you've always been using. So you're going to be paying that same fixed rate. If you're on Power Smart pricing, as you saw, in general, aside from summer afternoons, your price is typically going to be lower on Power Smart pricing or hourly pricing. So yes, you're still using the same amount of electricity, but you're paying less for that usage depending on the time of day.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you everyone for this incredible conversation. We have questions that keep coming in. So again, I apologize that we didn't get to all of them, but we will respond to them and send a follow-up email. Tons of great resources and information to lowering your energy bills, how to be aware of consumer scams and protections, and where to go to, for complaints, and how to build communities stronger. As we start to wrap up here, I'd like to give the speakers about 1 minute, a takeaway from this conversation, any final thoughts, or simply what gives you hope going forward. Marisa, since you're on right now, I'll start with you.
Sure. What gives me hope moving forward is that we're having difficult conversations that we've avoided in the past. I think that COVID has brought to light our need to make sure that we have consumer protections to everyone in Illinois, that we're not scrambling last minute to make sure that people's lights are on and that they have water flowing so that they can wash their hands and keep their children safe. And, unfortunately, we have a large segment in downstate Illinois of municipal customers. Springfield is one example of a city where we have a municipal supplier and we pay 11.5 cents a kilowatt hour for our electricity here. So you have people that are not being helped by these programs still in this climate of COVID, and that wasn't a message of hope to end on, but I have hope that collectively we can take action and make sure that we're serving all of these communities. How's that?
That's perfect. Together we build stronger. Caroline, how about you?
Yeah, I think, one thing that's really giving me hope, a few years ago, we weren't having a lot of these conversations on challenges of water affordability that we're experiencing. So I think the fact that more and more people are recognizing that this is a big challenge that people are facing is really important. And then what also gives me hope is I'm just seeing time and time again, the passionate water advocates that we have in our community who are working tirelessly day and night to provide water access to our neighbors. And I think that's something that's really inspiring to me. And they're also working tirelessly to make change happen in communities and at the state level around water affordability. So that's really amazing to see. And then also over the past year, we've actually had water utilities reach out to Elevate asking, what are the water affordability challenges my community is facing? What can we do to better address this issue? So that's super exciting. And then also it's great to see programs like UBR come on board to help people as well.
Great, thank you. Sarah?
Yeah, so I already talked a little bit about how exciting an opportunity this is. I mean, we are in the midst of a crisis, but it does seem to have energized people and put more focus on some of the major systemic problems that need to be addressed. Also, I would say continued opportunities for partnerships. Something that I didn't mention that I want to make sure I get in, especially since I think that there are probably people with representing other organizations working in this space on this call, is that CUB has capacity to work with other organizations. That is what we love to do. We have 9 full-time outreach staff who want to work with you and help spread the word about these programs and get people even more energized about implementing some change. So feel free to reach out to us because we too are feeling energized by this chance we have to make some significant, meaningful change.
Thank you, Sarah. And Pastor Vance, final words? You're on mute. No, we can't.
Here we go. Yeah, we go.
Yeah.
It's the stories. I get excited about the stories. As long as I continue to hear the stories of people who are being helped or people who have challenges and we can respond, that the more I hear the stories, the more I get excited that our work is making a difference and that we can help folk. And if you know a story, if somebody's got a story, please share it so that we can respond and try to do the best we can to help each other.
Wonderful, incredible, and thank you, all of you, for sharing all your final thoughts. I'd like to take this time to bring Yami in to share with us her final thoughts. Yami, thank you again so much for bringing the Elevating Our Voices series to us. We have learned so much, and I would just like to hear your final thoughts on all of this before we close.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you for all of the Elevate staff and organizations who've collaborated with us over this summer series. I know we're a little bit over time, so I'm not going to take a whole bunch of time. I just want to say on a high note, it inspires me to have the opportunity to work on such vital, important issues with such phenomenal folks like the people we have here today. So you all keep me going, as well as the people that we help on the ground. So thank you, everybody. And it's been my pleasure to do this work. Thank you.
Thank you again to all of our speakers. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. To our audience, thank you for everything that you do and for being here with us. We will be sharing the information. And finally, from me, thank you. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great evening.
You too.